Hey everybody, it's me Loki, and welcome to the Friday show. Obviously, every Friday I'm gonna have a podcast, but by the time you're seeing this, it'll probably be very early Saturday morning. Hope I can crank it out by midnight, but this has been doing it for a lot recently, just because I was doing a final today. Had my other video, my other channel go live. That was a big video I was editing on till 4 a.m. this morning actually, so a lot of stuff kind of shaking out. My semester is ending, but hopefully that means more content for you guys coming up. So let's get into it. Before I start, also one more thing. This is my second time recording this. The first time, I don't know what happened, but it was really just not that good. I kept kind of stuttering, tripping over myself. So I'm hoping this will be the time I can just get to it, get to the point, kind of talk about what I want to talk about. So without further ado, I don't want to bore you guys anymore with kind of what I have to offer. Just I will let you know. Get some snacks ready, get some popcorn. It's gonna be a pretty long video because we gotta go over the predictions I made last week, and then we gotta make the predictions for this weekend slate of games as well. So because of that, going forward, I want to make sure to have the reactions to the games like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, just because I don't have to do both the reaction and prediction on one day. A lot more kind of work than it has to be, and then it kind of drives out the video. So without further ado, let's get kind of into it. So the Minnesota Vikings went into Ford Field and they lost 34-23. The Lions were able to put together a pretty good game. Their defense has not been playing horrible recently, which is just good enough to have them win. Because in my other video, I mentioned Jared Goff's playing at a very high level right now, and that was obviously more than enough to get some points on the board because the Viking defense is kind of woeful in that regard. But Jared Goff, Jamal Williams, Amon Ra, I know a couple of their tight ends have been playing decent even without Hawk, so that's also been kind of unique to see. I thought after Hawk their tight end room would be destroyed, but they've been kind of able to rattle it out a little bit with that, so that's pretty cool to see. And their defense, after he fired their DB coach, has been a lot better. But the Vikings have got to step it up on defense. I saw the stats, and Kirk Cousins had 400 yards, like a little over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you would think of that kind of stat line, he absolutely just dropped it all over the lines, but he did not, unfortunately, and they lost that game. And they only put up 23 points. I know Justin Jefferson, I had a touchdown or two this game as well, but their defense really has to stop allowing more than 30 points a game. Just because when it comes to the postseason, they're not going to get by just by singing to Justin Jefferson, Thielen, kind of having an older Dalvin Cook run the ball. So there's some concerns kind of in Viking land right now, but if you're the Detroit Lions fan, you got to be happy right now. Their team is doing good. They've won their 6 of the last 7. Their only loss is literally against the Buffalo Bills, and they're weren't now leading the AFC. So that's obviously great to see because I know the Lions fans have been kind of dying for a team like this that fights hard, that plays good. Even if they don't make the playoffs, this is just such a big improvement over what they've had the last few weeks. And you got to give Dan the man a lot of flowers for his ability to turn this team around. So going into next game, we have the Baltimore Ravens who went into the Pittsburgh Steelers home, and they beat them 16-14. So one thing that's kind of unique about this game was that there's a lot of injuries, really, especially to both their quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett got off the game with a second quarter concussion, I believe, and I know Tyler Huntley also got off with a concussion in this game as well. Because of that, the Ravens defense did get to capitalize with 3 interceptions on Mitch Trubisky, and they're able to kind of escape with this game just because I understand AFC North football, especially when they're playing against each other, very grindy, very physical games. So one more thing before I kind of move on to the next segment. Justin Tucker is now the all-time leading Raven scorer, and that's pretty cool. Justin Tucker is probably the GOAT of all kickers. He easily has the record for the longest kick in NFL history, and then he's just been the most accurate kicker. I believe he's the 92 range for his career. So he's obviously just been doing great all time, and right now that he's the Ravens all-time scoring leader, I'm pretty sure he's for sure going to be a Hall of Famer, and that's pretty cool to see. I think special teamers need a little bit more love and canon, so we're going to have to wait and see on that whenever he does retire, but I just want to give him a quick shout out before I move on to the next game. So this is the first game I did get right. I was kind of on the cool streak because I thought the Vikings and the Steelers would win those games, but they didn't. Joe Burrow and his Bengals went into in this game just taking care of business, which is awesome to see. They won 23-10. The only thing about this game would just kind of be I know Burrow's receiving core is banged up. Because I know T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase have all been kind of dealing with injuries in and out of the lineup recently. I know Joe Mixon also had his injuries as well earlier this year because I know he had a concussion as well, which kind of took him out for a couple weeks. But when the Bengals are healthy, they're a very good team. Nothing has really changed from the Super Bowl run. I feel like they've gotten better. Joe Burrow has a lot of chemistry for his receivers, and they're able to beat the Browns, who don't have chemistry because Deshaun Watson obviously came back from a suspension. So they've been really trying to just rely on Nick Chubb. But so it's kind of similar story with the Titans and even to an extent the Giants. If you stop Chubb, you kind of stop the whole Cleveland offense. So we'll kind of have to wait and see if Deshaun ever does get acclimated to the offense. But for now, they've been looking terrible with him under center. I know Jacoby Brissett threw a couple passes. I have no idea what that was about. So they're kind of running a weird 2 QB system, but obviously that was not enough, and the Bengals were able to get this win pretty clearly. Another game we got right. The Buffalo Bills took on the New York Jets 20-12. Everyone kind of expected the Bills to win because this would be the get back. The Jets were able to take one off earlier at their home. The Bills got the win at their home, which is pretty cool to see. It's because the Bills Mafia is very cool, very loud, very passionate bunch, and I know it's cold as hell out there in Buffalo, and they play tomorrow, so can't really see that game as well. So one thing I want to talk about would be, excuse me, Mike White is like one tough ass guy. He got injured twice in this game. Basically, he injured his ribs multiple times. The Bills had no mercy on him at all. He had a couple big sacks on him, and then it looked like he was done multiple times, but he kept coming back in, and that was a nice sight to see. Even though he was obviously banged up, him playing for his team is all nice to see. But obviously, the kind of detriment to that would be this week he is out for sure, and Zach Wilson's coming back to start, so it did kind of bite them in the long run. He maybe should have probably just went in the sidelines, probably just sat out the rest of the game and get healthy for the game they have coming up against the Lions. That's what it was. I totally did not want to go look it up and check that out for you guys really fast. That's a part of editing. Anyways, so yeah, I think they should have just rested him after he got hurt the first time, but obviously we'll kind of wait and see for that just because the Lions are coming in pretty red hot right now, and they're also fighting for a wild card spot, and the Jets are too, so that's going to be a very tough game for both teams. That's going to be a big litmus test. Basically, whoever gets the win in that game will have the wild card spot probably locked up for the conference, but we have to wait and see on that. I'll get more into that when I actually cover their match, but I just want to talk about that really fast. Cowboys beat the Texans 27-23. And I'm not going to lie, I said they'd win by like 40, and I kind of stand by that just because I thought, oh, that was a team to put 30 in one quarter against the Colts, and it's the Texans. They're like 1-10-1 this season. They're just awful. I'm going to not beat around the bush on that. If you're a Houston fan, you probably understand that this team is obviously just in the tank bowl for sure. And obviously they have 2 games below or above, however you want to kind of put it, above Denver, below Denver, as much again, however you want to put it, so they can get the number 1 overall pick. But anyways, let's talk about what happened in this game. The Cowboys did not play good at all. Their defense was kind of giving up big yard plays. Dak had 2 interceptions. It was really not until the last drive where the Texans kind of remembered that they were trying to get a number 1 overall pick. And then the Cowboys kind of put together like a miracle last drive, like in 2 minutes. Dak looked great in that drive, and then they're able to get Ezekiel Elliott his another touchdown this season as well. I know Pollard and Zeke have had a bunch of touchdowns this season. As a running back too, they've both been feasting, which is kind of cool to see. But this was a kind of a trap game for them, and they barely were able to get out of it alive. I'm not sure bodes for their matchup against Jacksonville, who are trying to get a spot in the playoffs by winning on their division. So we have to see about that. I'll talk about that in a couple seconds as well. The Eagles blew off the Giants 48-22. I said it before, and I'll say it again. The Giants are one of those teams where if you stop their running back, you kind of stop the whole offense, and that's literally what happened. The Eagles' defense was just smothering the Giants all day, and then their offense is probably even better. Jalen Hurts is playing on an MVP level. They have Quez Watkins. They have A.J. Brown. They have Miles Sanders playing very good as well. They're all playing at very high levels, and that kind of showed. Jalen Hurts just ran all over them. I don't know the exact yardage he had, but He must have had well over 100 rushing yards. And he had 4 touchdowns, I believe, in total this game. He just dominated the whole game. Whether it would be passing or if you try to take that away, he can just run all over you. He's just a beast right now. And the Eagles are just rolling through it right now. The Giants are on a big slump. And they've just been sucking in the last few weeks. There's no other way to put it. They haven't won a game convincingly in a while, and they've kind of only beat up on bad teams, and it's kind of really starting to show when things get tough. They're not doing so hot right now. But let's move on to the next game. The Jacksonville Jaguars. I kind of talked about them earlier for a brief second, but they beat the Titans. That was very surprising to me. They beat the Titans 36-22. I had Tennessee winning this game, and obviously it did not happen. This was their first win at Tennessee in like 8 years or so, like 2014. So that's a big momentum gain for them as well. Just because Trevor Lawrence is here. He's arrived. I talked about that in one of my videos I uploaded recently. 3 touchdowns, no picks. The running game wasn't really too much a factor because he was just slinging it all over the Titans. And then the Titans, I mentioned this earlier with Cleveland and New York as well. They're one of those teams. You stop their star running back, you stop the whole offense, and that's what happened. That's not so much what happened. Derrick Henry still had a touch on 117 yards, I believe. So he still had his fair share of feasting on the Jacksonville defense, but other than Derrick Henry, they're very one-dimensional because you're not going to trust Ryan Tannehill to go on and win a game for you. So the Jags pounced on that, and they're able to get go on the road and get this win. Next game up would be the Chiefs and the Broncos, and I did say the Chiefs would win in a one-score game, but not in the way I thought it would be. I thought it would be a little bit low-scoring, but they're able to win 34-28 on the road against Denver. And this was just an unfortunate game for Denver. It kind of encapsulates their whole season. The one game Russell Wilson plays really good. He unfortunately has to leave early for concussion, and then it was a really bad hit. He got hit when he was scrambling on the right sideline, and then he just got absolutely clobbered, and then he was on the floor for a while. So prayers up for him. Hope he's doing better. But right now, the unfortunate state is that the Broncos are terrible. They have this they would have the second overall pick, but unfortunately going to Seattle. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later on. But Mahomes did not look too good this game, but they're able to get the job done. He had multiple picks, I think 2 or 3 picks this game, but it was not enough for the Denver defense, and they're able to unfortunately not seal this game because at the end, obviously when Russell Wilson has concussion, Brett Ripien had a game-losing interception as well. So that sucks. It just kind of shows that the Chiefs sometimes just feel unfair. They're 15-0 when Mahomes is playing on the road against their division, which is insane. And so I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are going to continue their hot streak. They play Houston next week, and the Broncos play the Arizona. I'll talk about a little bit more about that in a couple seconds, but the Chiefs just, once again, are having another dominant season. The Panthers win on the road, 30-24. Obviously, I thought Seattle would win, but Carolina came in and took care of business. They had a 14-point lead, like a 17-point lead at one point. But Seattle did kind of come back a little bit. But the Panthers just made sure to keep their lead. They played well enough to make sure they put points on the board when Seattle's really catching up to them. And the Panthers are not too bad of a team right now. They have a real shot of winning the division. While the Seahawks have been kind of on a big slump recently, they lost another game on Thursday. I'll make sure to also talk about that in a quick second and recap that game. But the Carolina Panthers have been looking decent, especially with Steve Wilkes as their coach and Sam Darnold as their quarterback. The 49ers absolutely just smoked the Buccaneers 35-7. It was not close at all. San Francisco just dominated with all phases of the game. Their special teams was playing pretty good, but it was really their offense with Christian McCaffrey just catching long passes. Ayuk had a great touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has stepped in. He's looked amazing. He does not look like a 7-round pick. He's been playing great so far for the 49ers. While for the Bucs, it's just their offense looks horrible, really. They're not bad because they don't have talent. They're just bad because they're not. I'm not sure if it's a coaching thing, a personality thing, but Brady's just missing open receivers he would have never missed early in his career. I don't think it's because he's old, but it's just, I don't know what's going on with that offense. There was a couple times where Mike Evans would be wide open, but Brady just kind of misses him. it kind of happened. It's been happening a lot this season, but this was not a game of how that happened because now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are under 500 and the Panthers are nipping at their heels for their division lead. The Chargers were able to hold off the Dolphins 23-7, and I thought Miami would win this game convincingly, but Miami's been on kind of a cold streak recently. They lost this game and they lost a game against the 49ers. This was, I'd say, more of a Chargers statement win than like a Miami loss, just because the Chargers defense with the backups they're playing, without Khalil Mack, without Joey Bosa, I believe, and I know for a fact that no J.C. Jackson played great. They were just absolutely always playing press coverage on every Miami receiver. They're playing very physical at the line. Their running backs for Miami had no yards. I feel like this game, but every time they tried to run the ball, they were just getting stuffed. Tua was not able to really cook too much, unfortunately. Tyreek Hill had a couple touchdowns. He had that one kind of a weird play where he was able to get like a fumble recovery because I believe it was Jeff Wilson. He pitched it back, not fumbled it back, and Hill just took it to the house. And then there was also a wide open touchdown, of course, because Tyreek Hill's an absolute cheetah. He's a game breaker, but the Dolphins offense kind of went flat. Their defense also had a really bad call against them. Jalen Phillips had a really good sack, but was called roughing the passer. It was probably because it was attacked the star quarterback, but that's kind of how the NFL refs things, unfortunately. I thought that was a really bad call, but that probably would not have saved them in the, when you really think about it. But Chargers, great win. Miami, I'm getting a little concerned for them right now because they've just not been playing good recently. The Patriots on Monday Night Football were able to beat the Cardinals 27-13. This was a really unfortunate game. It felt more of an injury bowl than anything. Ramondre Stevenson, I believe, Devontae Parker as well. That was one of the Patriots wide receivers who got hurt. Jack Jones, I believe, got hurt from the Patriots. And the big one would be that Kyler Murray tore his ACL, unfortunately, that ends his season. I talked about this in my last episode where I kind of went off on the Cardinals a little bit. There's a whole laundry list of reasons of why the Cardinals are not performing expectations, but the Patriots were able just to go into Glendale, get their win, and there's not too much more about that. No one really thought the Cardinals had a chance, and going forward, they're going to have to be starting Colt McCoy, so this season is basically lost for them as well. Going forward into Thursday Night Football, I did see the 49ers would win, and it was kind of a weird, I'm going to say weird game just because it looked like an 8-point game, but in reality it was not that close. San Francisco won and Seattle won just dominated. There's no real other way to put it. George Kittle had 2 great touchdowns. Brock Purdy, once again, looking amazing. He just knows how to kind of use, he has sneaky athleticism, so he can kind of move around. He can slide around a little bit, kind of maneuver the pocket, which is amazing to see. And then Christian McCaffrey, 26 carries, and he had a touchdown up over the middle and the goal line as well. Seattle right now is on one heck of a cold streak. I don't know how else to put it. They've lost the last couple games, and right now they're out of the running for the division, so they have to try to get into the wild card. They're 1.5 games out of the wild card, I believe, because the Giants and the Washington Commanders are kind of fighting for that. Their season is not completely done, but it's not looking the best because Tyler Lockett, unfortunately, got out of a finger injury. He broke his finger, and he might not play for the rest of the season, but Pete Carroll is very optimistic he might, just because they wouldn't absolutely need him if they want to make a playoff push. But it might seem all kind of doom and gloom for Seattle, but even as a 49er fan, they're in a very good spot. Here's why. They had a great rookie class here. Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, not the NBA superstar. They have another player named Kobe Bryant, if you're getting kind of confused about that. They also had Abraham Lucas as well, and they had Charles Cross. Those 4 rookies have been playing on a great level. They kind of just came in, started playing immediately. I believe Tariq Woolen is leading the whole rookie class right now in interceptions so far. And then Geno Smith has been playing very adequately. I'm not sure if they will want to keep him because I know the last few games haven't been his best showing, but at least during the beginning of the season, he was playing very well. And so the main thing about this season would be when they traded Russell Wilson, they got back a lot of draft capital, and that's really paying off because the Broncos have been really bad this year. There's no other way to put it. So Seattle has the 2nd overall pick, and that kind of gets me a little pissed off just because so far from what I can tell, Will Anderson's projected to go second overall, and Will Anderson's compared to Von Miller as an edge rusher. So if they get a Von Miller esque player, a very good edge rusher to kind of show up that defense even more than what the rookie class has brought them, I really don't want to play Seattle if that's the case. So I hope Denver starts winning. But if you're a Seattle fan, it's not doom and gloom. Even if you don't make the playoffs, your season went way better than what people kind of thought would happen because everyone thought this would be a tanking kind of year. But so far, they're 7-7. They still have a chance of getting the playoffs, and they have the number 2 pick. So they're both competing and still getting very good draft capital. So they still have some things to look forward to, unfortunately, even as a 49er fan. But if you're a Seattle fan, you have a good future right now. Pete Carroll's kind of revitalized his coaching career. They got a lot of new young players, as I mentioned before, with that rookie class. So we have to wait and see on how Seattle kind of develops those rookie players going forward, and as well as the reinforcements they'll get with Denver's picks going forward as well. But that's pretty cool to see. And right now, I'm gonna take a quick couple second break, and then we'll talk about my predictions for this weekend's games. All right, everybody. So let's get into this week's set of predictions. So first game up would be the Vikings and the Colts. I think the Vikings will win. Okay. So for this weekend set of games, I'm not going to do any like kind of score predictions because there's kind of a lot of weird matchups going on this week. Just because there's just a lot of games where I have no idea what's going on because they're starting new quarterbacks. Some teams have not even listed which quarterback will play this weekend, so I was kind of say whether to name one team or win or the other. Not kind of like last week where I dropped more score predictions. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Vikings and the Colts play tomorrow morning, and I think the Vikings will win, but I think it'll be a lot closer than the Colts will get credit for. The Vikings defense has been awful recently, especially, but they've been kind of bad all year. But they've been bottom three statistically, and then they kind of got pounced on by the Lions. I know the Cowboys throwing like 40 points, and the Eagles blew them out earlier. And every game they've been in has been a one score game as well. So they really haven't had like kind of like a blowout win going in their favor, unfortunately. So that's why it's kind of hard to trust their defense, especially. But I think because the Colts have been just so awful, kind of inconsistent this year as well. Kirk Cousins, especially not in prime time, and Justin Jefferson should be more than enough to get the job done. But I think the Vikings will still win, even if the Colts do kind of make a little bit of a run, or they could have put up some points as well. I think the Vikings still win this game. Next up, we got the Ravens and Browns, and I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how to kind of gauge this game just because there's no official starter for the Ravens. It could be Tyler Huntley because he passed concussion protocol, or it can be Anthony Brown again because Lamar is done out at least for the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure if he's done for the season, but he's not been playing recently, so who knows what's going on with that. We might have to kind of check in on that later, but no confirmed QB for Baltimore at least. But they're a very streaky team. They've blown multiple leads. Think about the Dolphins game, the Bills game. But so I think this might be just another kind of ugly AFC North football game where very defensive, very gritty, very grindy. Not going to be very pretty passing yards to the air. A very physical game, especially with how the Cleveland Browns play their running backs, and it's how the Ravens play their running system as well with Greg Roman. So it's really hard to tell who's going to win this game. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but I think the Browns win because I have no idea who's going to start for the Ravens at quarterback, and the Browns need a win desperately, so I think they'll kind of pull this one out their behind, and the Ravens already took home one game earlier this year, so I think the Browns will take over this one. Next game, Dolphins Bills. I think this one's pretty easy. Bills win convincingly. It's going to be in Buffalo, low 30s if snow projected on the way, and the Dolphins have been ice cold as well, unfortunately. They lost to the 49ers. The 49ers have been kind of blowing out everybody, but the loss that kind of concerned me was the Chargers because the Chargers are not really known for the stout defense, especially this year. They've had so many injuries, and they're still able to relatively shut down their wide receivers. They stopped their running backs at the line of scrimmage. So if they couldn't really get past the Chargers defense, who knows how they're going to play against the Bills defense at Buffalo. and I know they want their get back because they had that really close game earlier, that thriller where Josh Allen ran out of time, like in the last 2 seconds. So I think the Bills will get their revenge this game. Next up, Eagles Bears. Eagles win by multiple touchdowns. I mentioned before, Jalen Hurts is playing at an MVP level. Great weapons on with the running back committee and their wide receiver room as well. The Bears have been awful this season as well. Another kind of bad year for them. Justin Fields has been really breaking out recently, but they traded away Roquan Smith and I am blanking on the other linebacker right now, but they traded away two of their best players on defense, and they're just a shell of their former selves, which sucks obviously. But I think the Eagles will not really care about that and take home and get another win for them. And another thing that kind of convinced me about that, their defense is great against the run. They stopped Derrick Henry, stopped Saquon Barkley recently, so I think they'll stop David Montgomery, or whoever plays for the running back two for the Bears. Lions and Jets, kind of touch up on this game briefly, but I'm not going to lie, it's kind of weird saying how this game is very important for playoff implication, but it is. But I think also, unfortunately, the Lions will win this game. Mike White is hurt, unfortunately, and Zach Wilson has been not very good as a starter this year, to put it mildly. So I think the Lions will come in. They might not put up 30 points, but they'll get enough points on the board for their defense to kind of get it done against Zach Wilson. So not too much about this game, but I think the Lions will take this game, and if they do win this game, I think they're going to get a wild card spot, which is kind of fun to see because the Lions have not really had too much success at all. So it'll be fun to see how they kind of play in the postseason right now, especially if Dan Campbell, very aggressive coach, he always loves to go for it. That'll be pretty fun to see, especially if they play against the Vikings or something division opponent in the playoffs. Other than hopefully my team doesn't have to play them because I feel like they would give us a pretty hard time because they're a very physical team. Anyways, let's talk Steelers and Panthers. I think the Panthers win this game. They've been playing very good recently. They're coming off a good win against Seattle. Kenny Pickett is for sure going to be out because he's in concussion protocol. And we still don't know who's going to start for the Steelers. Another team, we don't know who's starting on Sunday so far. It can be Mason Rudolph or Mitch Trubisky, either or. I still think the Panthers will have enough firepower to get past whatever quarterback they throw out there. And they'll have a good win against the Steelers as well. Next up, Chiefs vs. Texans. Chiefs by multiple scores. That's kind of an easy game just because the Texans are missing Dameon Pierce, who's their best running back. Nico Collins, who's their wide receiver 2, I believe. Derek Stingley, probably their best cornerback. And Brandon Cooks as well. They're all injured and are probably told just to probably chill because they're going to get the number 1 overall pick. Or that's at least their plan. They're going to continue to tank, and the Chiefs are going to dominate as usual. They've been very good this season as normal. So I don't think anything special or anything crazy. I'm not saying they're going to get an upset or anything like that. The Chiefs win by multiple scores. Anyways, a game I have no idea how to gauge is the Falcons and Saints. So earlier, the Saints kind of had a really crazy game, close ending at the end. I believe in week 1 or week 2, very early in the season. But right now, the Falcons have shut down Marcus Mariota. He has a knee injury, so they're going to be starting Desmond Ridder. Their third or fourth round pick out of Cincinnati. He's a rookie quarterback, so I would love to see how he plays. I think Desmond Ridder has potential to play in the NFL, but we have to kind of see how he plays against the Saints. The Saints are a very physical, rough team, but they've been just injury prone recently, and their offense has seemingly, whenever it matters most, a receiver drops a pass, something happens, they get a fumble, or so something untimely happens, especially the last few games against the Bucs and 49ers specifically, off the top of my head. So I think the Falcons will kind of split this series against the Saints this season. I'm not sure how much they'll win by, but I think it'll be one kind of possession game as well. So, get hyped, they're going upset. I think the Jags will beat the Cowboys this week. My logic would be the Cowboys barely squeaked past the Texans, who are obviously tanking this year. They're injured, and they're not very full of talent at all. And the Jags have a lot to play for. They're trying to catch up with the Titans to get their division secured up because they beat them as well. So they have a lot more momentum kind of coming into this game. And Mike McCarthy has been known since his time in Green Bay to kind of fall into trap games. So I think the Jags will win. I'll be a close game, but I think they win. I think by a touchdown or so. Another game, once again, kind of hard to predict, would be the Cardinals Broncos. Russell Wilson is out for concussion. Kyler Murray is done for the year, so it's going to be Brett Ripien versus Kyler Murray. I mean, not Kyler Murray. I already just said he's out. Colt McCoy, and I would have no idea how to gauge this game. So I think I'm just going to go with my gut. I think the Cardinals will win by like a touchdown or so. They've had a lot more chemistry of Colt McCoy than because Colt McCoy's already had to start a couple of games and come in for Kyler Murray a couple of games this season already. So Brett Ripien has not been looking good, especially the game against the Chiefs. So I think the Cardinals led by Colt McCoy will win this game, but it's going to be an ugly game. Not much people are going to be talking about it. I don't blame them because it's going to be a battle between two backup quarterbacks on two teams who people kind of thought they'd do a lot more. Anyways, we got the Patriots and the Raiders. I think the Patriots will win this game by like 10 points or so. I have no idea how to gauge this game as well. Their offense has been kind of looking better, but I understand Matt Patricia is very suspect as a offensive coordinator, especially early in the season. But the Raiders are just falling apart right now. They blew a game against Baker Mayfield, who's coming off like 40 hours with the Rams. They've had just multiple games. The Chiefs game, they blew like a 17-point lead. They blew that 20-point lead against the Cardinals. They've not been very good at all this season, especially when it comes to being up big. They just kind of sputter, especially their offense in the second half. And then their defense gets tired for being on the field so often, and then that gives the other team more momentum. And I think the Patriots would come into Vegas and get the job done. It's not going to be anything spectacular to see, but I think the Patriots will win by 10 points or so. Next game, Titans and Chargers, and kind of another weird game. They're kind of both streaky right now, and the Titans have not been looking so hot right now, but the Chargers have been looking a lot better recently. They were able to beat the Miami Dolphins pretty convincingly, and I'm more against San Francisco. They kept their our running backs in check. They held us to I think like 3.5 yards per carry. It was I know normally we're like 5 yards per carry, so their run defense when they're on it, they can lock up. And if you can stop Derrick Henry, which I understand he's a top 5 running back in the league right now, but if you can hold Derrick Henry to less than 100 yards and make Ryan Tannehill have to beat you, it's not going to end well for the Titans. And I think the Chargers will be able to kind of put that formula into place because the Titans are really Derrick Henry on offense, and that's it. And I'm pretty sure Justin Herbert, Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen can put up points on that Titans defense. Bengals and Buccaneers. Another game, kind of hard to gauge, but I think the Bengals win this game pretty easily by like 2 touchdowns because the Bucs on offense have just no chemistry and I just don't know what's going on. There'll be just sometimes, once again, I kind of harped on this against their San Fran matchup, but there are times where they'll have Mike Evans or another receiver kind of open on the sidelines, but Brady kind of misses them. There's just very bad communication this year specifically. They have just such a lack of communication where their running backs are also not doing good because their passing game not doing good. And then I know Leonard Fournette has been benched a couple of times, where he's missed a couple of games as well. And Rashad White has been a little bit better, but they're still, I know, in like the bottom part of the league when it comes to rushing. And this is a very ugly season for their offense. And then their defense, unfortunately, has not been too hot either. They've been okay, but whenever someone can really put up points, they've just kind of fallen apart. Thinking about the Chiefs matchup, the Niner matchup. I know those are two kind of top teams in the NFL, but I think if they kind of get exposed by those two offenses, Joe Burrow with Joe Mix, I'm not sure what's the status on his receivers, but Joe Burrow had a really good touchdown pass to, I'm forgetting the last name, but he had a receiver. Let me look it up for you really fast. Bengals wide receiver Tyler. Basically, I know he had a receiver kind of come in out of nowhere recently, and he was able to throw like a 50-yard touchdown pass to him last week against the Browns. So he really can, if he can mesh well with that guy, he can mesh well just about any of his receivers. So I'm not really too concerned about that I think they will win pretty convincingly. Next game up, Giants Commanders. Commanders are gonna win this game. The Giants titled them at home, and now it's the Commanders' turn at their hometown to win against the Giants. I think they will. The Giants are in an awful slump. They're so reliant on Saquon to move the offense, and if he gets shut down, it's another one of those teams. If Saquon gets shut down, the whole team kind of falls apart. They don't have any cornerbacks for the secondary to kind of keep up with Scary Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel as well. Antonio Gibson catches out of the he lines up as a wide receiver, catches out of the backfield as well a lot. Brad Robinson has been kind of putting up some good games recently, so I think the Giants will lose this game probably by 10 points or so. I think the Commanders will be able to get their win on them, and then that kind of really puts them in a really good spot because now they for sure have a game over the Giants going into the wild card race. My last prediction for tonight, Rams Packers. I think the Packers are going to win by... it's kind of hard to tell, but I think they'll win by 13 points or so. They have home field advantage at this time of year. Cold as heck. It's like 8 degrees or so. So you know there's going to be some snow. It's going to be very cool. And the Rams have not been the best team, obviously. Another kind of scenario where injuries have really taken a toll on them. And they're starting Baker Mayfield. The reason why I'm kind of listening to that detriment is because even though Baker Mayfield didn't have chemistry with his receivers on Thursday when they play against the Raiders, the Packers have at least a game of film to kind of look back to see, okay, Baker Mayfield does this, to kind of adjust to how he plays with Jefferson, how he might dump it off, how he might play with Tutu Atwell especially. So they'll have a little bit more of an insight on how to stop Baker Mayfield on this Rams team. Anyways, those were kind of my predictions for this week. I'm going to get this kind of edited out, put some graphics probably up, and I want to make sure that you guys have a great night, great morning, whatever it's going to be for you, and hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you guys probably on Tuesday or Wednesday when I do my reactions to this week's games.